If Oklahoma starting quarterback John Mateer makes a big statement against Michigan, he could be the Heisman and a first-round pick.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an NFL draft analyst with Bleach Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He's the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers. And as always, thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shop for being our everydayers. It's week 2 of college football, which means some prospects need to make a statement. We're going to talk about those offensive prospects that need to make a statement, the defensive prospects that must make a statement in week 2, and then those sleeper prospects to watch. Keith, when you look at the college football schedule, it's not a lot of like big time matchups just yet, right?
No,
Everybody's still toying around with the, cupcake schedule and all non-conference stuff, right? But there is one game. There's one game that's probably the biggest game of the weekend, 7:30 p.m. kickoff Eastern time. Michigan taking their true freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood to face John Mateer and the Oklahoma Sooners. Keith, I got a feeling that you're going to be talking about John Mateer, though.
Yeah, of course, right? He's one of our guys that we're most interested in, to be honest with you. And we talked about this past weekend, week 1. He had a really good game, right? It was over 300 yards, I think 3 touchdowns.
I think 4 total touchdowns.
4 total, yeah, 1 rushing touchdown, right? And so now, you get a big time matchup. You get Michigan defense, right? You get all of the conversation about Michigan's, freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood. You have an opportunity to show improvement. Not only that, DP, this is a resume game, right? Because with the 12-team playoff situation, this allows teams to win or lose maybe 2-3 games at the most, right? But if you're in that 3-loss situation, if one of your losses is Michigan and Michigan goes on to be a really good team, right, and you play them close and it's a tightly contested game, right, you look competitive, then you might get a nod over a 2-loss team, right, when it comes down to the college football playoff, because we know some of the requirements for getting in the playoffs, they're subjective, right? As much as they try to nail down what it is, it's subjective. So I'm looking at John Mateer from that perspective, but then obviously the NFL draft perspective is, can this guy elevate himself? He was in my top 10 quarterbacks coming into the season, top 10 quarterbacks this past week when we ranked them. And I want to see if he can elevate himself, because we talked about this, DP, this past weekend. There were not many great performances from the household names that we know from the quarterback. So if he goes and do this like up into 2 weeks, right, you might have Nuss versus Clemson, and maybe Carson Beck versus Miami were probably the 2 biggest wins. He places himself right up there with that situation. And then you come off of this, people probably talking about Heisman and things like that. And obviously with the history with Oklahoma quarterback. So I'm going John Mateer, man, to be a playmaker, make some plays, elevate his draft stock, make a statement.
Yeah, against Illinois State last week, 30 of 37, 81% completion, 389 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He threw a interception in that game, but I believe he also had a rushing touchdown. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to, is seeing how involved will his legs be against this defensive front in Michigan, right? Like Michigan's going to be out one of their best linebackers. I think it's like Jay Sean, I think is his name.
Barham.
I think so, yeah. So I think I think they hit him with like a targeting penalty at the second half of that game. So he's going to be out the first half of this game. And that could be a really big loss for them in the first half, because of the fact of the legs of John Mateer, also throwing in the middle of the field, mesh concepts, things of that nature. If you're missing one of your off-ball backers, and now you're playing a guy who doesn't really play much, or what you weren't expecting to play much anyway, because you have a legitimate starter, yeah, like it could be a little bit of an issue for that defense. And I think what Mateer is, like you said, the Heisman, but then also, do we, like, if he goes out here and plays at a high level, do we start hearing QB1, his name mentioned with the QB1 conversation? Like, because at the end of the day, like, he's got some of that Baker Mayfield, Jackson Darts type of swag from the hair, the headband, the way he carries himself off, just from mannerisms. Now, if you go out here and play well, Like, you know what I mean? And play at a very high level against a team that is physical, they're fast, they're aggressive, especially defensively. Like, and I think his legs, he should be prepared to see blitzes and to see simulated pressures, different things like that. If he's on top of that, Keith, yeah, he's going to be able to make some plays down the field. Him, Deion Burks, those receivers, things like that. We know that Brent Venables, listen, Bryce Underwood looked really good last week. Brent Venables is one of the best defensive minds in college football. I expect him to slow some stuff down for that Michigan offense and keep them kind of off kilter a little bit. And if you can, that puts a lot of onus on John Mateer to go out here. And like I said, if he plays well, we could hear some QB1 discussions regarding him. You know what I mean? Especially until everybody else, that all the big names
catches up.
Yeah, until like Arch has that big time moment in the big time game. Nussmeier has that 300, 400-yard passing performance, and Cade, gets it going, stuff like that. Yeah, Mateer could be like, yeah, I beat a cupcake, but I also beat a blue blood. I beat a team that won the national champion about 2 years ago. So definitely looking out for him. I'm going to North Carolina. I'm going to Duke. Duke faces Illinois. And Darian Mensa. Now, granted, he transferred from Tulane. A lot of people think he's going to go back to school anyway because he still has this year and next year of eligibility. And he played Elon over the weekend. They gave him that kind of cupcake to get himself settled with get him going. And boy, was he going. 27-34, almost 80% completion percentage, 389 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. And I think for Mensa against I think it's Brett Bielema is the coach for Illinois. Like, you're going to have to deal with a very Gabe Yakus off the edge. That they can rush the passer. They have a corner, and we'll get into the defensive players later. But Xavier Scott in the back end, this is going to be a good defense, right? And also Illinois can put up points. Their offense is pretty solid with Luke Altmaier. And he played well last week and everything. They don't mind running the ball. They always seem to have some sneaky receiver that nobody knows about that they can get the ball to. Like, Illinois is just they're really good at that. So I look at Darian Mensa and I'm like, man, this could be a really win for you and the ACC, of course, to knock off a really good Big Ten team who I believe Illinois is ranked in the top. I think either top 20 or top 15 now. So you talking about being able to not just get a statement win for yourself, but for your team, and then put you guys in kind of the driver's seat of the ACC and get yourselves ranked and move yourself into that top 25, top 20 as a team. This is a big time game for Darian Mensa.
Yeah, DP, and I'll say this, and we talked about the weekend, right, and how there are not a lot of, I guess, high-profile matchups, but that's a good call-out, right? And that's the thing about, the NFL draft. There's always a draft prospect to pay attention to it. And I say this, that we can't – I understand what the notion, right, of him going back to school, but if he plays well enough, right, and this quarterback class is disruptive overall, you can see him deciding to come out, right? Like Daniel Jones, I believe, I can't remember how many years he played, but it was really one big year that he had. Yeah, that, kind of had him declare and come out for the NFL draft. So you definitely have to pay attention to those things. And when people start talking about, first round picks and $20 million and $30 million, you start to think about it a little different, right? You start to say, hey, maybe I could go back to Duke when my NFL career is done. But DP, let's do this, man. It's time to switch sides of the football. We're going to bring out and talk about a make a statement player on the defensive side of the football. What 2026 NFL draft prospect are we talking about? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day of our lives, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. Less than a minute, you can do all of this, of course, with Prize Picks. And one of my favorite features is the fact that I can check projections, like Josh Allen for more or less 270 passing yards in week 1, or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. You can do all of this with Prospects. So download the Prospects app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prospects is good to be right. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that makes you feel alive in every single detail and way. As an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same. From metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, you can even feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. When Oklahoma faces Michigan, if we talk about John Mateer and Deion Burks a little bit, I go look at the defense for Michigan, and I go right to their edge rusher, Derek Moore.
That's
like
exactly
this
what I was
is
going to do, DP.
this is a guy, man. Like, it is crazy because he could have went to the sleeper spot, because I don't feel like anyone talks about
Nobody
Derek
talking
Moore
about. Yep.
at Michigan, right? And now he's the leader of that pass rush. He's the senior, he's the veteran, but he's also a very capable pass rusher at the same time. This is a guy that has a strong build, he has a good get off, and he can absolutely turn the corner and get to the quarterback. But I think for him at 6'3", 260, the big thing for me in this game, Keith, is going to be containing the legs of John Mateer. Because one thing that we know, he likes to run. And it's not just like, okay, I like to scramble. No, like, he actually runs the ball. Like, like they'll call design runs for him. But when you are in those true drop back set situations, and John Mateer is sitting back there, your secondary is playing strong coverage and different things of that nature. Derek Moore going from, I say, slow rush early in that rep to, okay, we got him contained. Let me close the gap. Let me close, shed this block, close, and get the sack, right? And get the pressure, make him throw the ball away. And one thing about, John Mateer, I think I said it on this pod before, he is an agent of chaos. Like, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get from John Mateer. Like, he's fun, but he's chaotic. So you want to get pressure on him and force him into some of those chaotic reads and decisions. And I think that's what Derek Moore is going to come in at.
Yeah, DP, I agree with you on the underrated part. And just looking at the stats, I think he had, 4.5 sacks last year, somewhere between 4 and 5. And when I actually cut the film on for this young man, I couldn't understand why he didn't have more, because he has the profile as far as the athletic ability, the quick twitch, the explosiveness, speed to power, versatility, ability to, bend the edge, fluid hips. I was like, this to me, DP, his profile screams 10 sack a year guy, right? Like that he could be a double-digit sack guy. And not only that, I just released my mock draft. I had a tough time not putting him in at the back end of the first round, just from a perspective of, I think he's that talented right now. Obviously, him being a senior and him not having one of those 8 to 10 sack seasons, it kind of gives you a little trepidation. But I think it's because Michigan has been so deep, right, just with their rotations and everything, that he kind of has to, earn his way on the field with just so many guys they put out over the past few years at the edge rusher position. It's almost similar to talking about another defensive prospect. I'll go here, Rayshon Benny from Michigan. I like this young man a lot. He's another high-profile young man that I you talk about playing behind Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, what they had last year before last, right? A couple defensive tackles come out. He's just been kind of waiting in the weeds. It's almost like how Alabama used to have him locked and loaded to go from Jonathan Allen to Deron Payne to, just all of these different guys. He's sitting there as, to me, a make a statement player, because in his interior defensive line class, I think he can quickly elevate himself because he has the mold, right? And you think about guys like Zane Durant, with who I like a lot, but he, 6'1", 285, right? Then you think about the Caleb Banks and 6'6", 280, and it's like, okay, how do you win with leverage and things like that? I think Rayshawn Benny fits the entire mold and has opportunity to kind of grow and continue to, elevate his draft stock. And you do this in a high-profile matchup against Oklahoma, I think that's big time.
Especially from the interior defensive line spot. If him and Derek Moore can close the pocket from the interior and from the edge, that's going to put John Mateer in some very precarious situations, Keith. I go to it's another matchup that I'm interested to see how it plays out. And they always play at the beginning of the season, which is crazy because when you think about like rivalry week.
But DP, can we do this real quick before you bring that up? I know it's a guy that we both talked about, and we've even done kind of like the scouting report on him. R. Mason Thomas will be another make a statement guy, for the Oklahoma Sooners defense.
Absolutely.
Looking, and the way I described him, DP, when I dove deep into the film, I was like, listen, I'm not sure. He does one thing really, really well, right? And that's the dip and rip around the edge, right? Now, listen, it's almost similar to the basketball player, right? I'm not sure if he could dribble. I'm not sure if he has a crossover, but he can shoot the three, right? Just get him down the court, tell him post up on the baseline and shoot the three, right?
Catch and shoot, baby.
Yeah, catch and shoot. I'm not sure what else he can do, but he can get after the quarterback, and that's R. Mason Thomas. So be on the lookout for him getting after Bryce Underwood. That should be fun, right? Watching him chase Bryce Underwood.
Stopping the run, too.
Freshman quarterback. What you say?
Trying to stop the run, too, because, Michigan ran, was it Justice Haynes last week for like 152 yards?
Yeah,
something like that. You're going to have to, set that edge and keep that run game. You want to put Bryce Underwood in true drop back sets. Now, granted, this young man, I'm not going to lie, he might have the best arm in college football right now. He's a freshman. He's like 18. I think he just turned 18 or something like that. So, his arm talent is ridiculous from an arm strength standpoint. There's not a window he can't throw the ball into, but you want to put him in those, especially on the road. Your crowd's going to be loud. Put him in third and longs, right? Do those type of things, and it's going to help. But Keith, Iowa versus Iowa State, for some reason, they always play early in the season. I never really understood it. I feel like they always play week 2, week 3 of the season. And I'm like, most in-state rivals, I feel like they wait to the end of the Georgia Tech is at the end of the year. South Carolina and Clemson is at the end of the year. I think might be Duke, North Carolina or something like that. But our boy, we talked about a couple of these Iowa defensive linemen over the summer. But my guy, the grave digger, Aaron Graves, man. Listen, Rocco Becht is a good quarterback. He's mobile. He's accurate. He can slice and dice you if you give him time. Aaron Graves being able to collapse that pocket, him, Max Llewellyn, those guys, especially because the fact that your offense, we can't count on 30 points from your offense. We cannot count on your offense even scoring.
You should not.
So to be honest, you need to make this as dirty of a game as possible. Slow this thing down, keep them off kilter, stop the run. Because they run it with, I think you talked about him after week 0, Hansen, the running back, and Abu Sama. So they'll run the ball, and you got to factor in the fact that Rocco Becht runs the ball too. They want to play balance at Iowa State. You got to slow that run game down, make Rocco Becht have to throw it 35 times, 38 times, true drop back sets, and let you and the rest of your defensive line get after him. Because the one thing that Iowa always has is they have defensive linemen, linebackers, and the secondary. Their defenses always have NFL players to it. Now, can you guys play a complete game against a really good offense that is in your state? And there's a lot of bragging rights on this game, things of that nature. So, talking about prospects, defensive prospects that definitely will be watching. It absolutely is going to be Max Llewellyn and Aaron Graves, the grave digger for me.
Yeah, and of those two players for Iowa, DP, I'll say I'm probably higher on Aaron Graves at this point. Sure. And I think he's another guy you talk about top 100, kind of like the Ty Robinson, right, of this year, Ty from Nebraska last year. So I definitely agree with you, and I'm interested to see how that plays out overall. And then I think we have another young guy. I believe he's draft eligible too. Prince Will Human Milan, right? And him transferring to Ole Miss. Haven't got a lot of eyes on him thus far. Obviously, it's only been 1 week, but want to see if he kind of compares any to his brother, right? Princely Human Milan, who was drafted in the 3rd round to the Carolina Panthers. So I think that's another interesting, make a statement player. Like, can he throw his name into that edge rusher bucket, of guys and potentially,
because they have a solid. It's not a big game, but they don't play a cupcake this week.
No, they got Kentucky. Yeah, and if you remember last year, I believe they lost to Kentucky on like the last play of the game, or I think Jackson Darton offense was driving and they couldn't convert to get down the field. So that's a pretty solid matchup too to check out and to watch. Definitely be some draft prospects over there. But DP, let's do this, man. We're going to talk about those draft sleepers, right? Which guys are sleepers, draft sleepers that you have to pay attention to for this upcoming week? We'll talk about them coming up next.
Almost a weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the LSU Tigers, wide receiver Aaron Anderson delivered in a big way, making timely catches, converting 3rd downs, taking those short passes, and getting yards after the catch, allowing his offense to stay ahead of the chains. And when they needed a clutch play, Aaron Anderson was there for Garrett Nussmeier. When the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay. And just like Aaron Anderson delivered for the LSU Tigers, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Okay, keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot, for being our everydayers. Sleepers to watch in week 2 of college football for the 2026 NFL Draft. Keith, I go to North Carolina State. They have a 6'3", 265-pound edge rusher, Sebastian Harsh, number 54. And this is a young man that coming off a game against East Carolina last week. He had 4 pressures, 1 QB hit, and a sack. You know what I mean? So he was able to make play, especially I think that game was at home. So he kind of plays that stand-up, like edge, outside linebacker role for North Carolina State. And again, like right now, I think if you're in the ACC, if you're an ACC team, you kind of hope what happened to Clemson versus LSU will have them reeling a little bit. You want to try and make up as much ground as possible and everything like that. And I think, again, he's a senior. He spent 3 years at Wyoming. He, this is his first year at NC State. And he's never had more than 3 sacks in the season, right? He's already got 1 already this year. He's a guy that consistently gets pressure on the quarterback. So for North Carolina State, especially because they have a sneaky offense with the young quarterback that they have, I think CJ Bailey and everything. It kind of sucks that Casey Concepcion is now at Texas A&M. He was your best wide receiver and your best player, really. But with CJ Bailey in that offense being able to get going and make plays, get on top of get the lead, get on top of your opponent, and then let guys like Sebastian Harsh pin their ears back and get after the quarterback.
Yeah, no, I like that call out, DP, and definitely a sleeper. From my end, we have quite a few guys, DP. We talk about sleeper prospects. You talked about Michigan. You talked about Justice Haynes, right, and his ability to run for 150. You go back to this Oklahoma matchup, and now you're in the prime time, right? Like you kind of off the beaten path last week. You're prime time now. And for everybody to know, this was a high profile kid coming out of high school, right? I believe he was a high 4 to 5-star young man. Things didn't work out where he previously was. He was at Alabama, I believe, right? And then transferred to Michigan. Now he comes here, and like we talked about, the running back race continuing to be wide open. He can make some headway, make some gain, right? Make up some ground. In this running back race. But I'm gonna go to two more guys as far as quarterbacks. I'm looking at Dante Moore, quarterback from Oregon. They're playing Oklahoma State, so it'd be a step up in competition, right? But also, like we said, this is a young man who's young when it talks about in starts, right? And playing football, and then wanting to see him. Okay, you had, I forgot, was it South Dakota they had last week? They had a
Montana
warm-up.
State or something.
Yeah. They had a warm-up last week, but now you get some fairly decent competition in Oklahoma State. Oregon should win this game going away, but I just want to see how Dante Moore's process is, right? When you talk about taking that next step as a quarterback overall, and be interested to pay attention to just in this QB race. Then the last guy, DP, he had a interesting week last week. Ole Miss quarterback Austin Simmons, he's draft eligible, redshirt sophomore, playing in the Lane Kiffin offense. I believe last week he went 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So you got a mixed bag of results. But we talked about Ole Miss is playing Kentucky. I want to see how this young man processes the game, how he, works through his progressions. How does he handle, the SEC play and big time moments? Because he has a live arm. When I was at the Manning quarterback camp, he was one of the guys that stood out to me. And I believe he's a left-handed quarterback. Also, he has a live arm. So. Now it's just, can you get it going in the right direction, right? Like, can you make sure that you're hitting all your targets and you're not all over the place with that live arm? So that's the 2 quarterbacks I'll say as far as sleepers to watch, because they both of those guys are very talented. Now it's just, can they play the game of quarterback from the neck up outside of the physical tools?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I like that. I mean, because I think he was a 4-star. Like a 4 or 5-star recruit for coming out of high school and everything like that. Austin Simmons was so very talented young man. Armed, when you brought up the arm today, I was gonna bring him. I was like, I've seen him throw. I was like, this kid can spin it. Like he's got a legit arm on him. So in this offense, we saw what it did for for Matt Corral. Got him drafted. What was it, 3rd round? I think 3rd round for Matt Corral.
Yeah,
Jackson Dart went round 1. The Giants traded up to get him. And everything. Austin Simmons, I think he has the best tools out of both of those guys, physical tools. So now, you put it all together, especially against Kentucky, and it's crazy because Ole Miss, it's wild how their season, how the schedule is. Last year they played their first 3 or 4 games with cupcakes.
I think it was 5. I mean? Yeah, I think it was 5 games they went.
They were cooking against the cupcakes.
It was a lot of warm-ups, DP. They did a lot of warm-ups.
They were stretching a lot last year in the season. And then they got Kentucky. Now getting Kentucky week 2. Yeah, and they got Zach Calzada over there at Kentucky. They have I think it's Jamari McLean, which is Macklin. I'm sorry, Jamari Macklin, which is Jeremy Macklin. I think his nephew, I believe, and everything. And they have Kendrick Law, the big, dense frame athlete from Alabama at wide receiver. I like to see that transfer. I'd like to see them Calzada and those boys get going. But Keith, I go to Missouri, man, and staying in the SEC. I go to Missouri, and we know Luther Burden's gone. I think Theo Weiss left and everything. They got to transfer Kevin Coleman Jr. that I remember watching during the offseason and during the summer scouting, transfer out of Mississippi State. Now he is a well-traveled wide receiver because he started at Jackson State in 2022, went to Louisville in 2023, Mississippi State in 2024, and then now he's at Missouri in 2025. 5'11", 180. Last week they played Central Arkansas, 7 targets, 6 catches, 48 yards. But this young man can run routes. He's got speed, and he's kind of, I think, they were trying to figure out this quarterback situation. They got the kid from Penn State. I don't know how to pronounce this kid.
Bo Prabula
or something like that. Yeah. They have him, and then there's another one they had, Matt Zollers and stuff like that. So Bo Prabula and everything. He had a big game last week, and I think he's going to probably be their starter going forward. You know what I mean, and everything. And I think with Kevin Coleman, he lined up in the slot 87% of his snaps last week. I think he's going to be the guy that they might want to get involved into that Luther Burden role, route running speed, run after the catch. Yeah, and with a new quarterback, you want to get him the ball get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible. So I look at that Missouri situation in that game. I want to see them get the ball to Kevin Coleman because this is a guy. Although he's played in a different school every single year, he's been in college football. He's talented, man. And I just think I think this could be a sneaky wide receiver in this class that nobody knows about. I just want to see him get. Now, granted, they targeted him 7 times last week. He was just more of the underneath trying to chain mover. Let's get some downfield targets. Don't don't do him the way you did Luther Burden last year. Like, let's get some slot fades and some vertical shots going because he's got the speed for it.
Yep. Well, DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. And guys, coming up on Monday, you already know Coach K, Coach DP, game ball, money makers, bag fumblers, who helped themselves, who hurt themselves after week 2. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.